What's up, everyone? Happy Friday. So this article made its way into my inbox this morning from Medium. It was like their daily top articles thing. And as soon as I saw the title, I was like, I have to do a reaction video / dramatic reading of this one because you know it's gonna be good. A quick read for white people who don't consider themselves racist. And one of the things that really got my attention was, look at the image they're using. Who's this guy right here? That's my friend Brian Cash. Now, if you followed my coverage of the Michigan protests, you know that I interviewed Brian on this channel. He is a massive stoner, but what's happened to him is this photo was taken of him at one of the Michigan rallies of him yelling at the police officers and all this stuff, and it's made its way into culture and was featured everywhere. Him being a big, angry, white supremacist, Nazi sort of guy, and that's obviously what they're insinuating here too. They've actually made an illustration of him. I tweeted it at him this morning. I told him about it. He was like, thanks for the heads up. And what's hilarious about this is Brian was not yelling at the police. He was yelling through the police at someone who was like manhandling a woman, a security guard who was like manhandling a woman. He didn't like that, so he was yelling at him. And he was yelling at him because he was totally stoned the whole damn time. He was stoned, and they played him out to be this massive, like, mean guy. Like, have you ever met a mean stoner in your life? No, you haven't, because they don't exist. But that's aside, what we're gonna do is, I have not read this article yet. I have no idea who Ola Caracola is. I don't even know how to pronounce their name. I have no idea who they are. I have no idea what this article says, but you know it's going to be good. And so I thought that I would read this article and just give you my honest to goodness reaction. It should be a fun video. I love reacting to SJW articles. They're frankly awesome. But before we get into that, listen folks, if you like my channel, you want to support it, make sure you're subscribed. Even if you think you're subscribed, you might not be. Turn on the notifications, give the video a thumbs up, all that good stuff. All right, let's dig into it. My newsfeed turned into a sea of black squares over the last couple of days, as I'm sure is the case for many of you reading this. Initially, this warmed my heart. I thought, yes, these are the kinds of friends I want to have. I did not think that. I did not. All day, I contemplated sharing the same image. But the more I thought and read, the more I realized that, well, initially well-intentioned, a black square, wow, a black square wouldn't do much for Black lives. I decided to say something instead. Listen, this revelation is though this is an earth-shattering revelation that posting a picture of a black square on your Instagram is not actually going to help Black people. Oh my God. It's taken me longer to write this than I had expected. I have found it exceptionally difficult to string together phrases which I feel might actually make a difference. I am not deluding myself into thinking that many of my words will have some huge reverberating impact. Well, that's good. Right-wing fanatics, extremists, and bigots do not follow my page, and my words will not likely reach them. And on the off chance they do, they will likely fall on deaf ears. You're welcome, darling. Your words are indeed going to reach them. And listen, I was thinking about this the other day. There was a time, when there was an actual alt-right. And when people said the term alt-right, they were referring to actual alt-right, like way, 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 way far off the dang plantation. Is there any such thing as a right anymore that is not alt-right? Because what it seems has happened to me is you have the progressive left, you have some people in the middle that don't really say much, that tend to be rather centrist, and then you have alt-right. And there is really nothing else. And maybe even that centrist thing, that's a little suspect. I don't know if that actually exists in the minds of the left, but what seems to exist is them, the good guys, and the alt-right, the bad guys, and no one in between. But congratulations, your article will reach right-wing fanatics, because of course I'm a right-wing fanatic. Even though I've been arguing with right-wingers on Twitter for the last 2 damn days over these Supreme Court decisions, I'm still, don't you worry, a right-wing fanatic in the eyes of the left. Fascists, neo-Nazis, and the kind of people who genuinely believe that they are superior to others thanks to the pigmentation of their skin aren't really the problem. No one believes that. No one believes that. You're making stuff up. The kind of racism is obvious, it's loud, and most people, not just in the US, but all over the world, agree that it's wrong. Thank you. To many of us, too easily consider ourselves allies of people of color, we never describe ourselves as racist because we don't have the Confederate flag hanging in our living room. We befriended black classmates and we shame Trump's xenophobic remarks on social media. Trump doesn't really make xenophobic remarks. You have to look at the full context of what Trump says, because most of the time he's not doing what you think he's doing. While these are all plausible acts, unfortunately, they don't mean that you're not a racist. There is an ingenious song titled "Everyone's a Little Bit Racist Sometimes" from Avenue Q, a brilliant Broadway show I had the pleasure of seeing because I couldn't afford the Book of Mormon, and it goes like this. I guess we're both a little bit racist. Admitting it is not an easy thing to do, but I guess it's true between me and you. I think someone's a little bit racist. I think everyone's a little bit racist sometimes. Doesn't mean we go around committing hate. This is real? This is real. Wasn't Avenue Q like a Tony Award-winning musical with the dang puppets? This is holy hell. I had no idea. I'm not even going to read the rest of that song. Stupid. In case puppets and parody aren't clear enough to you, Scott Wood shared a similar sentiment when he wrote, "The problem is that white people see racism as conscious hate, when racism is bigger than that. Racism is a complex system of social and political levers and pulleys set up generations ago to continue working on behalf of whites at other people's expense, whether whites know/like it or not." Now listen, pause. There can be an argument made for elements of systemic racism. Hear me out. No. Hear me out. There can absolutely be an argument made that our system today is built on things that were set up when this country still had a whole lot of racism. Okay, there is validity to that. We never went back and changed those systems, and therefore it's still there, even if our fundamental attitudes about race have changed. That I can get on board with. However, calling everyone racist is not the answer. It is not actually going to fix the problem. What it's going to do is to get people to dig in their heels and not want to do everything. If you want to have a conversation about evolving the way that things are done in this country so that we go back and we pull apart systems that were built when there were a lot more racist people than there are today, we can have that conversation. I think that's a fine conversation to have. But calling everyone racist is not going to accomplish that. Gee, I don't even know why this is hard to understand. You think by shaming people, they're going to want to help you? You think by shaming people, they're going to want to work with you? People don't work like that. And of course, the real question we need to ask is, do they even want to fix the problem? Because I don't believe they do. I think they want to perpetuate the problem because it gives them something to complain about. That's what I think the goal is. Because if the goal was actually to fix the problem, if the goal was actually to go back and fix systemic racism, we could have that conversation. You could have that conversation with many reasonable people who'd say, yeah, that system that was built in the 20s or the 30s that was inherently racist when it was built, that we've only continued to build on top of it, people would get that. You've got to fix the foundation of the dang building. But not when you're saying, you're a white supremacist if you don't want to have this conversation with me and talk about your white fragility. It doesn't work like that, darling. It doesn't work like that. I have friends who are people of color. I have dated and have been intimate with people of color, like we need to know who you're sleeping with, and I would never support or vote for any initiative which blatantly or subtly proposed any kind of discriminatory or racist practices. I imagine most of you reading this could make similar sentiments. But in my lifetime, I have carelessly used the term okay, you said something racist. That's what you say. I'm not going to say that word. I would never say that word. You said something racist. And isn't this always the case with like these white SJW, like woke and, elitist women? They always end up saying racist nonsense and then declaring that everyone else is the racist and they are the virtuous ones. I usually ended up using the term, a word I'm not going to use, while speaking to a white friend. I have laughed at racist jokes. I have passed judgment about people who do not look like me without knowing enough about them. And I refer to the corner stores in Barcelona as, I'm not saying those, similar to everyone I know in Spain. Okay, I'm gonna keep going because this is a long article. I could keep going on this nonsense. I really could. So what does that make me? The events of the past week have made one thing incredibly clear. It's not either you're a racist or you're not. As Padma Lakshmi explained on Twitter, racism is a spectrum with varying degrees of unconscious and learned behavior reinforced by society every day. So the correct question is to what degree are you prejudiced? Against whom and why? Okay, guys, I'm gonna do my confession. I admit it. I'm confessing my sins. I am prejudiced and biased against all SJW elitist women who force this crap on us, usually white women, without understanding that they are usually the ones that are racist. Not all white people are bigots. But all white people consciously or unconsciously benefit from a system which oppresses people of color. Our indoctrination with underlying racist ideals begins at birth and is so ingrained in our culture that we may not even be aware of the biases we hold. Often our perception of people who look different than us is based on incomplete or altogether inaccurate stereotypes. We need to do better. You mean like all those times like these bougie white women judge people like me who aren't a size 2 and who don't dress altogether girly? You mean all those times like people have judged me all my life? Is that what we're talking about here? And I only make that comparison. Listen, that is not remotely the same thing to a white person judging a black person, and I don't really give a flying F. But like, these people are not, like, this is what they do. This is what they do, man. I mean, I kind of wonder. Okay, I'm gonna put this out there. I want some feedback. I was not one of the cool kids in high school. I was not one of the cool kids growing up. I was one of the weird kids. I was one of the weird kids that I just wanted to hang out and have fun and talk to people who wanted to talk to me. I was a band geek and all this stuff. And I feel like because I was kind of one of like the outcast kids, like I never really, like, if you wanted to be my friend, we were cool. Like, I don't feel like I did this mean girl crap in high school. And I feel like so many of these social justice warriors, they were mean girls in high school. They were constantly judging other people in high school and saying, you can sit at this table and you can't sit at that table. And that's what they did from the time they were little kids. And now they've grown up. They've become SJWs in their own rights, and now they're judging everyone else constantly. I really don't feel like I did that. I mean, I'm not saying I never do that. Of course we all do that every once in a while. Like if I see a crazy drunk psychopath on the street, like homeless person on the street, I'm probably going to cross the other side of the street because that person frankly scares the heck out of me. I mean, that's just the way it is. But I feel like this is something that if I had been like one of the cool kids growing up in high school, would I be more of a judgmental Karen? Maybe. I don't know. There's got to be a way to study that correlation. Were you a cool kid in high school, and how much of an SJW are you now? That does not mean that as a white person, you don't struggle with the realities of life. It simply means that your skin color is not one of the things that makes it harder. Not all cops are bastards. Okay, interesting transition. But all policemen are employed in a racist and corrupt system, which was initially founded to track down runaway slaves who are considered, like there weren't policemen before slavery. Are you serious? Who are considered stolen property, not human beings. The American prison system fuels mass incarceration and exploits predominantly black prisoners who work for as little as 2 cents a day for companies like Verizon, Whole Foods, American Airlines. Ooh, American Airlines is the worst. I got a whole other video planned about American Airlines. And many, many more. It takes more hours of training to become a barber than it does to become a cop. Why the rush? There is no proven correlation between the number of policemen and crime rates. If any of this has piqued your interest, I suggest a book, whatever. She actually does make a fair point here that, like, why the rush to become a cop? My understanding Well, this is my understanding for prison guards. I don't know about the police officers. I imagine they have to go through some sort of academy, training program, all that. But with like prison guards, at least, it seems as though they get hired and they just get kind of thrown right into it with minimal training. And so I actually will take the point that they probably should go through some more training. And this is the thing. We can get on board with common sense things. If you want police officers to have more training, if you want them to have different kinds of training, sure, I'm all on board with police reform. I have absolutely no problem with it. If you want prison guards to have more training, I have no problem with it. Abolishing the police, though, is not the answer. That is not the answer to the problem. That'd be like, you know what? I don't like the walls of my office anymore. Maybe I don't like the green anymore. Maybe I want to paint it. Let's burn down the whole house. That would be like what that would be saying, man. It's uncomfortable to realize that we've been given better opportunities. It almost feels like it's undercutting your accomplishments. I know you worked hard to get where you are. The movement isn't trying to discredit that. It just wants to give other people a chance to catch up, a chance for tangible, not theoretical equality. No, what it wants is equality of outcomes. That's what she's pushing for. Now, I have no problem making opportunity available for everyone. And I think, again, there are conversations we can have about how to do that. But she's not talking about equality of opportunity. She's talking about equality of outcomes. And if there's one thing that I've learned emphatically in the work that I do, it's that you can give people every opportunity in the dang world, but you can't force them to take it. They have to want to take it. They have to want to step up. They have to want to work hard. If they aren't going to do that work, yeah, I use that term, if they aren't going to do the work, then every opportunity you give them will be for naught. Implicit bias, cultural appropriation, whitewashing, and white privilege are real. If you think that you haven't experienced them, you are wrong. You simply haven't realized, and that's what forms so much of your entitlement. Listen, man, I am absolutely convinced that this girl was like a cool kid in high school, and that's why she feels entitled. It's like the pretty girl syndrome, where they're absolutely entitled for everything, and they don't learn how that other people, listen, man, like, again, I wasn't one of those girls, so I like never had that experience. If I had, maybe I'd be more entitled than I am. The first time I heard about white privilege was at university in a class on race and gender. Of course it was. One example struck me more than the others. Band-Aids. Band-Aids was her wake-up moment. Oh my god. Labeled as neutral or skin tone, they are exclusively produced with white people in mind, implying that anything darker is in some way unnatural and that a correct kind of skin tone exists. So, I mean, I feel like I've seen the Band-Aid thing a lot lately. Honestly, though, I feel like I've seen Band-Aids in all sorts of different colors and tones for like a really long time. Am I wrong about that? Because I really feel like there have been. I could be wrong. I'm totally open to being wrong, and if I am wrong, there should be Band-Aids in all sorts of different colors, or cartoons, or whatever floats your dang boat when it comes to Band-Aids. Fine, whatever. I think that's a fair point, if they don't already exist, but I'm pretty sure they do. I like this example because of its small and insignificant nature. Who cares about the color of Band-Aids? And by the way, that's like a good business decision, man. If you make a larger variety of Band-Aids that are going to match a larger variety of skin tones, you're going to make more money. Like, full stop. That's just a good business decision. Who cares about the color of Band-Aids when we compare it to things like police brutality? But it's these small elements, these microaggressions, that we, as white people, are often unaware of, that pile up and work together to diminish the worth of a whole community in bigger ways. If you think that institutional racism is only a problem in the United States, think again. Many of my friends in Europe don't entirely understand how this issue affects them, but as Europeans, we started this mess. See, Europeans? It's your fault now. Ooh, you better get ready. Watch what's coming. Colonialization began long before the United States drafted up their constitution. 52 out of 53 African countries have been colonized by white folk. But why should we be held accountable? Why should nice white people who have black friends have to pay the price? Why not just the bad ones? It's frustrating, isn't it? Being judged by the color of your skin, judged by what your ancestors might have done. My ancestors didn't do that, actually. No, wait. That's wrong. That's incorrect. But you know what my ancestors colonized? Quebec. My ancestors colonized Canada. I guess that's my thing. I don't know. I don't even know what that even means. I mean, I'm sure there were people living there because my ancestors literally did found Quebec. But I don't know. There's some there. Maybe I'll learn my family history someday. But my ancestors did not colonize Africa. Of that, I am sure. It's frustrating, isn't it? Oh, I already read that. White people. This moment isn't about us. Not every effing thing has to be about us. This girl's literally writing an article that is all about her and her experience and her revelation at Band-Aids in a class she took in college. But it's not about her, okay? Okay, darling, okay. This is not our movement because we don't need one. We do not need one. Okay. And that should make you happy. That is privilege. As white people, we do not need to understand this pain. We can't understand it. But here's the thing. No one is asking you to do the impossible, really. Because truly, as hard as you might try, it is literally impossible to fully comprehend what it is like to experience systemic oppression that goes back generations. You know, I could actually agree with her on that if she wasn't writing in such a self-righteous white bitch tone. Then I could agree with her on that. But I'm not going to. I'm going to dig my heels in because you know what? You know why I'm doing that? Well, first off, it's Friday. Secondly, it's like really hot in my office. Thirdly, I'm like just not inclined. But mostly it's because she's approaching me as the reader of this article. She's approaching me with this tone and she just expects me to go, oh yes, please teach me about my inherent racism. No, that's not the way human beings work, man. Approach me like a human being, try to have a conversation, bring up the issues like a normal human being and not like a pod person. And then maybe we can have a chat. But if you present the information like this, that's your responsibility. You're the one writing the article. You're the one communicating. This is your responsibility. You haven't done it well. You haven't done it in a way that engages conversation. That is the problem here. We do not need to understand something in order to accept that just because we are not experiencing it in our own skin, it doesn't mean it's not taking place. Remember, the world doesn't revolve around you, says the person writing the article. There is an entire community of black people shouting their truth at the top of the lung. All you have to do is listen. When was the last time she listened to Candace Owens? When was the last time she listened to Larry Elder? When was the last time she's listened to any black conservative? Any black conservative? Has she watched a walkaway town hall with a walkaway African-American town hall? Because there are several of them on YouTube. I would challenge the writer of this article if she ends up seeing this video at some point, which who knows, she might. Go listen to black conservatives. Don't just listen to people on your side. The black experience is not just about the liberal experience. There are black conservatives, a lot of them, more than you think. Now, I'm not saying that you should take the truth of either side as the gospel. You shouldn't. But get yourself a full breadth of the spectrum of the perspectives at play, because there are very, very different perspectives within the community of people of color, of black people. Let's see. It is not up to us to tell black people how to protest and mourn and what to feel. What is described as riots in the US. Okay, there were literally riots. Black businesses were destroyed. In fact, I just saw an article earlier today about the fact that black businesses were disproportionately affected by the economic shutdown as a result of coronavirus. So yes, those are legitimate experiences to consider as well. What is described as riots in the US is seen as an uprising by the rest of the world. The narratives we share matter. When history is written, it is always manipulated to tell a certain kind of story. Oh, is it? Oh, is it? Dare tell. It is up to all of us to write this one and pay our dues to the black community worldwide, except black conservatives. Besides physically showing up for protest, there are other startlingly simple ways to show your support for the black community. Your newsfeed is undoubtedly filled with petitions, book recommendations on the subject of race, and links for donations. Sign, follow, read, donate, and amplify voices which has been silenced for so long. You know what she could have done in this article? She could have actually talked to black people. She could have interviewed black people and talked about their perspective. She didn't do that. Why aren't you amplifying black voices? Why aren't you taking your own good advice, man? Instead, you wrote an article about your experience, made you the center of the universe, while simultaneously telling everyone else you are not the center of the universe and you need to listen to black people. Take your own goddamn medicine, please. If you find it difficult to relate to black characters in books, TV, or movies, I don't actually, take a moment to imagine how difficult it must be for black children in the US and Europe who are forced to partake in Eurocentric education to relate to the white characters, which have always been the focus of school and university syllabi, because God knows the only thing that we should consider when relating to people is the color of their skin. That is fully encompasses who they are as a person, is the color of their skin. It's the only possible way to relate to anyone is by the color of their skin. I'm being facetious. Scott Woods wrote, yes, racism looks like hate, but hate is just one manifestation. Privilege is another, access is another, ignorance is another, apathy is another. So are you part of the problem? There can be no growth without discomfort. Remember, if you are learning about racism instead of experiencing it, you are privileged. Let's take a look at Ola here. Let's see what Ola's deal is. White girl, blonde, looks very pretty. Definitely probably one of the cool kids in high school. Hasn't really written enough for me to know much about her. So that's a quick read for white people who don't consider themselves to be racist. Again, just a reminder that this person is so interested in truth that they used an illustration of Brian Cass, who is a massive stoner, and they didn't even illustrate it correctly because he was never shouting at police officers. He was shouting through them to something that was happening behind it. And anyone who's actually looked at that photo knows that. So she's already lying in this photo about the guy in the damn illustration who's one of the nicest, sweetest guys in the world. Really, really good dude. Massive stoner, but good dude. Good people. So if they're lying about the image, the literal image that they're using in this, can you really believe anything else the article has to say? Whatever. It was a fun read on a Friday. I hoped you enjoyed it.